This is a story about a haunting at Zozo House in Oklahoma. Before we start, please hit like and subscribe for more stories like this. The story of the Demonic Zozo House in Oklahoma does not begin with thunder, blood, or a door flying open by itself. It begins with something quieter, something almost childish. A board on a table, a planchette under human fingertips, and a name that should have meant nothing at all. Zozo. That is the part people remember first, because the name is simple enough to sound fake and strange enough to stay in the mind after the lights go out. In the stories told around Oklahoma, Zozo was not described as a wandering ghost, not a grieving spirit, and not some harmless voice trapped between worlds. Zozo was described as something older, something clever, something that did not knock on the door, because it waited for someone inside the house to invite it in. The house became famous because people said the activity started after spirit board sessions, when the board began answering too quickly, too smoothly, and too personally. At first, the movement seemed like a trick of nervous hands. Then the planchette reportedly began to race between the letters Z and O, back and forth, faster and faster, until the name repeated like a chant without a mouth. Z-O, 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 Z-O. People who believe the story say the house changed after that. The air felt heavier, rooms that had been ordinary during the day felt watched at night. Shadows seemed to gather in corners where no furniture stood. The silence of the house stopped feeling empty and began feeling occupied, as if something had found a place in the walls and was listening through the cracks. The fame of the Zozo House grew because it carried the one pattern that makes any haunting frightening: intelligence. This was not just a picture falling, or an old pipe groaning, or wind pushing against loose siding. The reported presence seemed to answer. It seemed to know when it was being discussed. It seemed to know how to frighten the people who live there, not with random noise, but with timing. A sound in the hallway after the lights went out. A cold spot behind someone's shoulder right after the name was spoken. A feeling that the house was not haunted by a dead person, but occupied by something pretending to be one. And that is why the Zozo story spread, because it is not only about a house in Oklahoma. It is about the old fear that some doors do not look like doors. Some doors are made of letters, a wooden board, a nervous question. And the moment a human voice asks the dark to answer back. The most disturbing part of the Zozo legend is not just the name. It is the way the name appears again and again in different accounts. Usually through spirit boards, usually with the same kind of behavior. A planchette moving in violent patterns. A message that begins as curiosity and then becomes threat. In Oklahoma, the story became tied to reports of a house where the activity did not stay on the board. People claim that after contact was made, the fear followed them into ordinary rooms. The board was only the beginning. After that, the haunting became domestic, which is always worse, because a person can laugh at a legend from far away. But it is harder to laugh when the sound comes from the ceiling above the bed. The reports described footsteps when no one was walking, oppressive feelings in rooms that had no reason to feel different, strange behavior from people and animals, and a presence that seemed to push on the mind. Those who told the story did not describe Zozo as a ghost asking for help. They described it as a manipulator, something that could pretend, something that could answer with enough truth to earn attention, and enough cruelty to turn that attention into fear. That is what makes the legend dangerous as a story. Zozo is famous because the entity is said to enjoy being recognized. It is not supposed to be banished by knowing its name. It is supposed to grow stronger when the name is repeated, when people gather around the story, when they dare the board to prove it, when they say, "Come through if you are real." The Oklahoma accounts became part of paranormal television, online forums, interviews, and late-night retellings, until the house was no longer just a place. It became a warning. The exact details shift depending on who is telling it, but the pattern stays the same. Someone reaches out, something answers, then the answers become personal. That is the moment every haunting changes. The moment the unknown stops being outside and starts using details from inside the life of the person who called it. A name, a fear, a death, a secret thought no one said aloud. In the darkest versions of the Zozo House story, the entity does not simply want to scare people away. It wants permission, attention, and repetition. It wants the living to keep asking questions. It wants the planchette touched again. It wants someone to believe that the next answer will explain everything. But the next answer never explains everything. It only opens the door a little wider. By the end of the Zozo House story, the scariest idea is not that a demon lived in Oklahoma. It is that the people who feared it may have helped build the doorway, one question at a time. The safe ending to this story is simple, but it is not comforting. No one needs to defeat Zozo in a dramatic ritual, and no one needs to prove the legend by testing it in a dark room. The safest ending is the one where the board is never opened, the name is not challenged, and the house is left alone. Because if the stories are only folklore, then chasing the legend can still lead people into real danger. Trespassing, panic, obsession, fire, unsafe abandoned buildings, and fear that follows them because they fed it with their own attention. And if the believers are right, if something does answer through those boards, then curiosity is not harmless. Curiosity becomes a hand reaching into the dark, hoping nothing reaches back. So here is the warning. Do not try to summon Zozo. Do not use a spirit board inside your home, in an abandoned house, in a cemetery, or anywhere you would not want something to remain after you leave. Do not chant the name. Do not dare it to appear. Do not ask for proof, and do not treat fear like entertainment when you are standing in a real place with real consequences. Do not trespass on private property looking for the house. Do not disturb residents, neighbors, or locations connected to paranormal stories. A scary legend is never worth breaking the law, getting hurt, or frightening innocent people. Do not burn boards, objects, or anything else with gasoline, candles, or improvised rituals. Fire is not cleansing when it becomes an accident. If an object scares you, step away from it safely. Remove yourself from the situation and talk to someone calm and trusted. And most of all, do not keep asking the same question after something has already made you afraid. The legend of the Demonic Zozo House remains famous because it sits between belief and doubt, between television and testimony, between psychology and the paranormal. Skeptics can point to the mind, suggestion, and unconscious movement. Believers can point to the pattern, the threats, and the way the name keeps returning. But every version ends with the same lesson. Some doors do not slam when they close. Some doors close quietly, and you only realize too late that you are on the wrong side. So leave the board alone. Leave the house alone. And if you ever hear the name Zozo moving through the dark, letter by letter, do not answer it, do not invite it, and do not ask what it wants. Because according to the legend, by the time it tells you what it wants, it already knows your name.
Thank you for your support. And thank you for tuning into the darkest horror stories of your life. Some of the stories are based on true events or experiences. Please do us a favor. If you could hit like, share this video, and subscribe to our channel. Never listen alone, and stay tuned for a new horrors and stories.